Bravehearts, Urbanites, Coach Mad Hatters, Vineyard Creatrix, Crimson Velvet VIPs. Welcome to my Monday, September 19th, 2022, 9:14 a.m. DMV Standard Time. So, yesterday I completed an entire session and was going to post it. It's titled Daddy Issues. And I'm quite proud of this segment because it's nothing close to what we are used to considering what daddy issues are. And so it did exactly what I intended for it to do, and that was push back on how we define things when it comes to us and our grapevine governance. Because what mainstream will have us believe daddy issues are does not match what the actual daddy issues are inside the neighborhood, amongst the trees, and at the grassroots. It never talks about the actual things that daddies are plagued with and what it is that they have to deal with when it comes to the interconnections and the intra connections of tribe. So, for about 18 months, I've been on this manifesto titled A Quest Called Tribe. And yes, I am a Tribe Called Quest uber fan. I am utterly, remarkably in love with a Tribe Called Quest. And so, most often when I'm listening to anything that they have ever created, I am in meditation. It takes me places. I don't go to them to listen to them just for the sake of being entertained. It's an entire vibe when I go sit with them. So because of that, slowly but surely it kept when it first popped up into my head, I just thought it was cute because I was vibing to a Tribe Called Quest. But then it kept coming back and coming back and coming back. And so I started putting it out there, and because it doesn't belong to me, putting it out there so that it could begin to travel the grapevine. A quest called tribe ought to belong to each and every person of the grapevine. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was having these stumbling moments when it came to me speaking to the vineyard creatrix, the one that creates for the grapevine. Those that are into cultivating the grapevine. Their creativity is to nurture, serve, and incubate and harvest within the grapevine. So they are not in tune, nor are they attracted to becoming commercialized or competing with these conglomerates. For one thing, it feels like a waste of life because most often that which they created is not for mass consumption. So you are getting these highly customizable, remarkably unique pieces from real artists, not the artist or so-called artist that's been curated by mainstream. No, we know chess artists. Hey, listen, let me tell you something. One of my greatest joys, and I haven't been down there since COVID, but um, wow. So, uh, within a within less than a block away from the Anacostia metro station, um, moving in the direction towards the big chair and the big school that's right there. And it's escaping me right now. And I keep telling folk, I was in a car accident in 1989, head on collision, didn't have on a seatbelt. And I've spoken about this several times on this channel. So sometimes it is a challenge for me to connect the dots, which is one of the reasons why I am as studious as I am. And it's really an exercise, it's an intimate exercise that helps me be able to connect the dots the way that I do. Now, what I was not expecting was all of my imagination being harvested or planted or cultivated, incubated. That's the part that I didn't, I had no idea that that was the serendipitous benefits. Had no clue was taking place. And so then I began to realize that had it not been for that head on collision and the prognosis being that I was going to become a victim of, well, should I say, a constituent, because it's not necessarily a victim. I too am in the midst of changing the way that I speak and how I define things. So, a constituent of dementia, I was going to become a constituent of dementia at a relatively early age because of the frontal lobe trauma. And so then becoming studious or investigative or using my head, hand, heart coordinations and all that other kind of stuff, which is one of the reasons why I you still use a manual dictionary. Folks think I do that because I'm a dinosaur and don't want to get into technology. In my opinion, technology fucks you up anyway. But I guess if you think about it, anything that takes it from your head and puts it out into manifested existence is probably a bit hindering anyway. But I mean, what the fuck can you do? Like, this is part of the natural phenomena inside this realm. I guess it's going to be wear and tear regardless. So, for me personally, so I say since it's going to be wear and tear regardless, I suppose we have to then go to the next level and begin customizing this experience to resonate with that which we are. And in my opinion, because every earthling experience is different, also in my beliefs, we are celestials inside of human flesh. And that composition of celestial consciousness now, like, what they say, oh my gosh, I can't remember how it goes. Fun in a bottle, fun time in a bottle, or let me think. Can't really, I can't remember what it's called right now. um Fun time in a, I don't know, maybe it'll come to me. But that's the way I look at the human infrastructure. It's also my belief that the consciousness exists in this realm, whether it's inside of a human body, inside a dog, a cat, a owl, a tiger, a lion, a panther, a butterfly, a mouse, an octopus, a shark, a dolphin, a snake, and all depending on the way that I've been conditioned, a spider, and some of these things that I name, I am utterly afraid of. Why? Who taught me to be afraid of these things? Why do I define these things in terms of evil or terrifying or criminal or villain? Why? Why do I define these things this way? And the way that I define dictates the way that I behave. I swear, every time I say mandate or dictate, it always chimes in patriarchy. It always chimes in like solar masculine, the positive polarity of currency Like I'm not sure, but mandate and dictate. The reachings of my visuals. It's incredible. So, we are here at this very moment because I wanted to speak a little bit more about maybe why I'm having the urge to record and post this prior to my segment called Daddy Issues. Because something major happened yesterday, and one of my siblings lost her mom, and it was a devastating moment. Mainly because she is still rather young. Um, she's not even in her 30s yet, and um, it rocked my sensibilities because I actually love and adore her mom. So once again, I am here using myself as the living example, which I'll also say it's amazing me how even me using myself as a living example, folks want me to bare my entire soul so that they can critique and criticize my entire existence when they didn't have a fucking thing to do with my existence. So why are they popping their ass inside the judge's seat? I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Now, I have theories, I have philosophies around why these things are so, but I guess when I get to atomizing the folks in my life and the audacity that they have with their blind spots, and then to try to like do these catchphrases that generalizes everything when we are such a highly unique species. We're not all the same, nor are we all different. It's all about chemistry and synergy. And it's interesting because it seems like only the musicians or only those that work with synthesizing or synergizing, only those folks really understand what I'm talking about when I say that all must be reconciled, all must be synergized, all must be synthesized. You cannot leave some bits and pieces out. It's all part of the gumbo. And I've even taken it as far as to metaphorically compare and contrast it to a recipe or a mixed cocktail or mixed drink. And how just the slightest ingredient can throw it off. And that particular ingredient might not even be tasteful by itself. And usually I use anchovies or I'll use ground pepper. Like you're not getting ready to sit there and just eat a bowl of ground pepper, but there are some recipes that if it's missing, you know it. I'm not eating anchovies outside of it being in Caesar dressing, period. But I can tell Caesar dressing when it does not have the anchovies in it. So when we get to, which is one of my greatest pet peeves, making fun of people's shortcomings or making fun of how they differ from the rest or figuring that their quote unquote weirdoisms is something to be poked at when we get to making funny and poking at people's pain simultaneously, yeah, that shit turns me into somebody else. And then there will be these moments that are on this there will be these moments with these folks on the sideline that honestly want to critique your warrior zone. They would like to critique the streak in you that is infused with this warrior energy, especially if you are a female, whether you are claiming the feminine energy or you have the feminine is it the physicality or the feminine biology, whether they want to um, critique and criticize that ferocious feminine energy. Every time I run into these types of scenarios, I immediately understand that they have no idea who Kali Ma is. They have no idea who the goddess Oya is. or Oshun. I'm just putting in Oshun just because I have to. I have to. Because interestingly enough, some of these deities that carry this ferocious femininity are androgynous, which means they can show up as a ferocious feminine today and tomorrow be a meek, mild masculine. Go figure. A meek, mild masculine? Oh, he must be gay. It's not true. It's not true. Inside the tarot, my dad is considered the king of pentacles. He is a Taurus. That means his dominant is earth elemental. My daddy grew up in the DC streets, honey. Not grew up. Okay, my daddy was a military, what they call a military brat. My granddad was career military, so my dad traveled a lot. Very diverse in the way he sees the world. But when they finally settled here in DC, he was still relatively young. And so, him being the Taurus that he is, remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and that is the planet of love. But he is the ace masculine in my world, the prime living example of an ace masculine. My daddy's, if you was to ever look at my daddy's hands, you could see his knuckles. With yeah, he ain't never pulled no punches, and the stories in the streets tell me so. Mainstream would love for us to take our beloved or our endearing ways of knowing. Shout out to Dr. Carr. Our ways of knowing and our movements and memory, and would have us totally forget the way we are incorporated in these scenarios. Because when you are in it, your purview and points of view are totally different than when you way outside of it, looking in on it. And so, yes, I'm quite proud of my daddy's big knuckles because there was the notion and the knowing of the consequences and the repercussions. I'm proud to know my daddy. There was a moment in my life when I did not. And just very little handful of people will understand that how being in his presence as an adult is literally healing me. It's propelling me. And because we have been conditioned to look from the outside in, we've been conditioned to honor that which is on the outside and totally run from that which is on the inside. Most people will not understand my existence during this time and space because they have sold into this American dream like utterly and full metal jacket. They have signed on to it. And let me back up. Let me pump my brakes just a moment because I always have to remember to take stock in the fact that some folks don't even realize that there is an alternative. And so if you've been totally conditioned in the American dream motif and you don't realize that there are other motifs, then yes, I can see why a point of view that would endorse graduate high school, go to university, get a bumping ass job, a banging ass job, become a shot caller, big baller, go get the big ass house and it's just you, or that big ass house is you and two people. Drive the most classiest cars. Don't ever let the car get 2, 3 years old before you driving a new one. Make sure you are always wearing something that is wonderful. And yeah, you show up in the world polished and nicely, wonderfully, beautifully, remarkably, adorably. Show up like that, and anything outside of that, step over it, get away from it, kick it, bruise it, kill it, stab it, poke at its pain, hitch it up to the bumper, drag it through the gravel. And then to put the cherry on top, this thing called belief is going to begin incubating the concepts and the context and the conceptualizations, the actualizations that says I am good and you are evil. So here's the take, and it's a personal take of mine, to the point where I am now speaking as the kid. I am speaking as the kid that is so proud of my dad for having the children that he had, regardless of, or no, not regardless of, because that's to be considered too, but I'll say um, in honorary of the women that he decided to contour tribe with and the offsprings as a result. And because my dad's situation, his living example, does not fit inside of the American motif, then the way he decided to contour tribe is always looked at weirdly because it is not part of that American narrative about the nucleus family. Even the nucleus family don't fucking work up to its example because it's quote unquote the bastards all over the place. They didn't even adhere to their own fucking shit. Which, if we take just a closer look to say maybe we should drop that belief instead of trying to constantly fit all of that in there, knowing fucking well that it is way more diverse than usual. You want to talk about the emperor with no goddamn clothes on? And why don't we just drop it? Why don't we just drop it? Nothing is ever as it seems. And usually, the deeper it goes, the more natural it grows, the more that you will shed all these fucking woes. Anything on the surface is going to have an illusionary spirit to it. But that doesn't mean that that's always a bad thing. Because what it really does is it's presenting you with a portal of opportunity. And on the other side is where your wisdom dwells. And I really truly wish that I had this type of wisdom and confidence when my mom was still living. Because we would have had some of those hard conversations about how my dad automatically became the villain because he went and had offspring with this one or this one or this one. My dad pop he did his part with populating it. He did what he did his, it was his. Let me because I even stutter because I'm trying to shed from this conditioning. But not having the chance to get to know my dad and not get to know him like he owes me answers and now I'm his judge and jury. No, I decided a while ago to show up as his defense attorney. And when I say that was one of the greatest challenges I had ever embarked upon, because I walked in back into his life angry as fuck with him. But I promise you that there was so much stuff that I didn't know. And he did not have to share his story with me. No, this was me serving as his defense attorney, and I was actually gaining peripheral content and context. And so the hard conversations that I was having with my big sister Reese, I will always and forever adore this lady because I think she knows non physically that the answers I sought had a lot to do with my healing. And she honestly filled in the blanks. There's 15 years between me and my big sister, and we have the same mom. And so she was able to witness my mom and dad in real time. And this was way before I got here. And so we usually don't take stock in who our parents were before we got here, with their stories, their challenges, their terrors, because my kinfolk still are being born under a cloud of terror. It might look a little different because of technology and current on and this elaborate illusion of the American motif. So it might look a little different. We are the last folks that ought to be calling each other evil about anything. We are the last folks that ought to be critically acclaiming and poking at the pain of one another when we were all born up under this thing called America's human resource. We've been conditioned to believe we are not still the greater denomination of American human resource. And then you get somebody like me who rebels at the fucking thing, and then I am literally now the black sheep. Listen, I got black labels all over the place. Realizing that I am in charge of my imagination. I am in charge of the way I see things. I am in charge of honoring me. And if so, those aspects of me that will be considered, as well as those aspects of me that's considered bad, and those aspects of me considered urban ugly. I am all a product of my varying dynamics of nature and nurture, and might throw some mystical, whimsical, intriguing things into the mix. And if I would have treated my pain just like mere pain, I probably would be one of the most dangerous, angriest, bitterest women in this time and space. Now, I am still bittersweet. Let's not get that fucked up. I'm still bittersweet, but I no longer feel obligated to oblige the motherfuckers in the nose seat row, up in the nose seat section. I ain't obliging them no more. Come a little closer and dare if you will, because remember, I am of dragon spirit. Only those that have true love inside of my space can dwell there. Not everybody can be around me. I am the thing now, not sure who would be in tune to Netflix series called The Sandman. That is one of my greatest joys. That is one of my greatest joys. I love that series. That series speaks to me. It's almost like if you want to get to know me as a writer, or if you want to get to know where the roots of my creativity, or where it dwells, try sitting in front of that series called The Sandman. This is where my attention is most of the time because I have this thing that says we are controlled by what we believe. Because what we believe, by way what we perceive, is how we behave. That determines if we be or not be in any case scenario with any person, place, or thing. Whether we show up or don't show up has everything to do with the way we believe, what we believe, how we believe. So if you don't believe in telekinesis, then it's not going to reveal itself to you, let alone emerge and become practical for you. But if you seek it with genuine authenticity, then it will show up more miraculous. And then even so, those that now have the ability to be participatory with these particular aspects and entities and deities and influences and influxes, still have to navigate this physical world inside of what the Harry Potter series would call muggles, these non magical folk. And yes, that puts me too in a category and be trying to stay out these fucking categories, but hey, it's part of the earthling experience. This is the society I was born into. And even though I push back a lot and I do remain on the outer fringes of this thing, I'm still part of it. The fringes on a carpet or the oriental rug is still part of the carpet. And even more so because if you run the vacuum through it, it's going to unravel. So it's even at its more delicate spaces of the tapestry, but it's still a very intricate detail of the tapestry. Yeah, I done went from gumbo to mixed drinks to now we talking about tapestries. But I mean, the correlations are there. The correlations are real, regardless of scenario. So I will redirect to say that I am very, very happy that my dad had the type of temperament that would not allow folks for long periods of time to guilt him into how he contoured tribe and what his own individualized actualizations unfolded as, what they manifested as. I really truly believe that the siblings that I have were meant to be my siblings, regardless of parentalship. And so, um, and then also the amazing blend where all of our siblings look at us as siblings. And we don't do that half sibling shit. They are my full siblings. They are my full siblings. And I think that's what makes me want to say my sibling base is better than yours. And that's just my little childish shenanigan because there is still strife inside of my sibling tribe, but there is an overwhelming abundance of love. And we are now um, taking better stock in how we relate, knowing that many of us come from all walks of life, different walks of life, and the siblingship is what encourages us to relate better and learn from one another and endorse one another and encourage one another. And it's incredible because when I tell you that my baby sister have been my support in some of the most tender moments, I'm gonna always say she got an old soul. She really do. And she's beyond her years and wisdom. Also a Taurus. So in the tarot, she's uh, the Queen of Pentacles. And so to even look at the energies from that dynamic, because most often, and I am gonna throw this in here, even though it really doesn't have anything to do with what I'm truly talking about. But I noticed that when we go and sit in front of general readings, we are taking on the way they perceive things, and the way they perceive the Queen of Pentacles is not the way I perceive the Queen of Pentacles. When I'm in excuse me, and let me say this, my big sister Reese is also a Taurus. Like I'm surrounded around Tauruses, male and female. So when I am in conversation with them, I see the Queen of Pentacles. I see the King of Pentacles. And so when I go and consult the cards, if the Queen of Pentacles and the King of Pentacles mean something totally different to me than if I was sitting in front of some general reading. And I really don't want to put down general readings, but use that as class time. I wouldn't even say use it as entertainment. Use it as class time so that you can understand different verbiages. You can be able to witness and see in real time different card decks and the different flavors that it brings. But at the end of the day, save some of your monies and go get your own deck. Tap into these guidebooks yourself. Research and develop for your sake ability, period. See, and then when you see these different general readings, trust me when I say it's truly going to resonate a little different than you showing up as the consumer, as the blind consumer. Because the way they are situating the Queen of Pentacles might not have a fucking thing to do with the Queen of Pentacles energy that you are now endorsing and dealing with. So that's my spiel with regards to these general readings. And I do not bash general readings, like I say, but there's a fine line between being the consumer and being the scholar. And then it really is, a couple more fine lines with being the consultant of the card yourself and mastering your own communications between the physical world and the non-physical world. So, perfect segue into physical world, non-physical world. I always ask, and I'm going to continue to ask, empower certain people who swear that the way they see the world is the way that it is, especially when they get into their arrogance of judging right or wrong up against someone that they haven't taken the time to get to know. I want to encourage more people to take their power back and ask folks when they get to being judgy and shit. Do you know why I came here? Do you know why I came here? Better yet, do you have any idea what my cosmic cocktail is all about? See, my overwhelming increase of Pluto energy inside of my dynamic would have you think I'm evil because that's the way you've been conditioned to believe it. You have no other context for it. Thus, your beliefs are conditioned. They are programmable. All of us are programmable. Let me say that, okay? I don't want to veer off and forget what I came up here for. But all of it is pliable and programmable. It's all impressionable. Speaking of which, hey, okay, we're back. It's interesting how I was speaking about her and she just knocked on the door. See, this is the part that I'm talking about when I say that the that that and I don't even really know what to call it, but the magic and the love as a result of being up under the same roof. This is the reason why I'm waving the multi-generational living banner again. I don't know who the fuck told us. Oh, you know what? Damn. The answer came in right I couldn't even finish the feisty question. So let me ask you something. Do you figure that because there is so much energy surrounding around a people that was always separated, always broken, always torn and ripped from one another, that when it came time to homesteading, that was a synchronicity that is now so unfamiliar to us that the moment a kid gets 18, it's either go to university or go get a job and go get your own shit. I wonder about that a lot. I wonder about it a lot. Um, and I'm in the middle of coffee and crumpets, so you will hear it because some things have to overlap, especially in this day. And I honestly wanted to come and talk about it. I wanted to come and talk about, from my perspective, from my first hand experiences, what it has been like to serve as my dad's defense attorney. And I'm talking about from the grapevine governance structure. I'm not talking about the municipalities and and that pseudo ass mm, that judicial, what is the I can't even get the, I don't know, that fuckery that they call a legal system, which was never ever ever intended for us, and it's all shrouded in all the intra adversity that dwells amongst those that sit in them seats. That's the reason why it's always an intimidation to walk up in these places. Whether you the plaintiff or the defendant, you don't know what's going on. It's a conversation amongst attorneys and lawyers, and I'm still wondering what the difference is. What's the difference between a lawyer and an attorney? I think it's two sides of the same coin in my opinion, because they all get to work and go into chambers and have these sidebar conversations. And at the end of the day, the one that's sitting in the plaintiff's seat and the one that's sitting in the defendant's seat still don't know what the fuck going on. And it still makes for a very limited conversation, because when you have somebody speak for you, there are little nuances that get overlooked inside the moment just because they don't have access to it. They don't have the proper context to be able to make sure that justice really is served. It's a fucking joke. And yet and still, we go riding our asses down to the courthouse, getting them folk involved, knowing goddamn well they really do not know what's truly going on. And that's how child support became what it is and what it was. That's how the determination, the schematic of determinants got put into play with deciding who was going to be the custodial parent and who was going to be the non-custodial parent, who was going to have ample guardianship, and who was going to have visitation. And so, as siblings, if my mama don't like your mama, then we can't be siblings. Like, we literally have to grow up in this schematic called perfect strangers. And not until we get grown can we begin to cultivate our relationship, because one or both of our parents, because we share one or both of our parents. It's almost like that animosity between parents it severs the sibling tribe, and it really is unnecessary because most of it is controlled by jealousy and insecurity and instability. And so here's my greater take, or my greatest take. Let me say that. Here's my greatest take. Those that don't try to insert their preconditioned uh that's gonna be kind of tricky to word. I don't have the words for it right now. I'm gonna have to ponder a little more. So let me give it to you from the street value, from the street point of view. Children are honestly, continuously get caught up in animosity that does not belong to them. No, this isn't stemming from Jada's red table talk. I've been talking about this shit for years. If you have access to my channel, the receipts are there. The receipts are there. I was even talking about this big ass brewing energy that was in conjunction with Corona, that is now transmorphed into COVID-19. When everybody who knows anything about the transits and the American motif going through its Pluto return and all of the energies that is substantiated. Like, energy don't need any supporting evidence, and it registers. And there are folks that stake their whole life in tracking the ebbs and flows of this energy, sometimes on a daily basis, and they too have receipts. Now, I won't claim to be one of them folk. I'm still a scholar in the means of the sun, the moon, the stars, and the movement of these infamous planets, the planetary influences that they had inside of this dimension. That's why I say I think we would be so surprised if we could actually see people outside of their flesh that has not been hijacked by the American mainframe. Many folks will ask me, am I studying Hinduism or Buddhism? There's another one, but it's not coming to me. And it's quite remarkable when I am now able to stand in my truth to say, my moon is in Virgo as well as my ascending is in Virgo. So I am double Mercury. I am the communicator. I am the communicator that is not afraid to go into the upper realms or the lower realms. And quite honestly, inside of mythology, Mercury was the only deity who could travel inside of the heavens as well as the underworld because it was the postmaster, if you will. It was the one that was making sure everyone got their messages regardless of realm. So it's Mercury is able to travel in the heavenly realms as well as the physical realms as well as the underworld realms, the realms of the underworld. And we honestly have been groomed to believe that these entities are always at odds, and it is so outlandish to believe that they actually harmonize in certain scenarios. There are certain situationships where the so called good and bad is part of the same moment, they are in each other's presence. And not only are they in each other's presence, it's required. The moment requires it. And what we would probably figure is bad is not as bad as we've been conditioned to believe that it is. It's probably more natural. The presence of so called bad is probably more natural than the sanctified points of views that have been thrust upon us for the sake of this whole purity thing, which is a fucking illusion. And of course, my intentions get misconstrued all the time. And then I endure these little subtle daggering moments. That's why I'm always talking about the jab and the side. Because, I mean, if you really think about it, your physical body's sides are tender. That's usually where you ticklish. It's usually like the sensibility of that area right up under your arms is it's sensational. It has a lot of sensories. So to get daggered in the side is crippling. So if you take that metaphorically, when we're speaking about how we are co-joined especially in tribe, in siblingship, that, in my opinion, the world would be a much stronger place if siblings were free to love siblings regardless of parents. Like, I wondered if we could remove the jealousy of parents or even remove the jealousy of second and third spouses. Because I also had this thing with, how is it that a step parent, how about this? How is it that a spouse, a subsequent spouse, comes in and be able to dictate what's going on with a family or past spouse that was already in progress before this subsequent spouse came into play? As well as us figuring that because this is a subsequent spouse, they automatically get the role of parentalship. That's not always the case either. And the lackadaisicalness of us not making sure that those lines of demarcation stay uh, amplified. Because I'll speak for the stepchild, because I've been in several times where, because you are married to my parent does not make you my parent. And to be dismissing this amongst offspring after offspring after offspring after offspring, that's an incredible thing, to not be the champion of situations that were already in progress when this new thing started. And that to be in respect of that is an amazing game changer. And so, in more ghetto terms, it's like, fellas, the new girl you dealing with, don't let her tell you how to deal with your children and your baby mama that's already in progress. Hold her accountable to get her feelings in check, or hold him accountable to get his feelings in check. That this was you honorably before they even came on the scene, and because they are now on the scene, they will not begin to dictate because they refuse to take a look at their insecurities. And that you are the source of this ongoing progression of tribe, and that their presence ought to be by invitation only. They do not automatically get access of authority because they are now part of matrimony. They don't get to come in and start telling the kids what to do. They don't get to do that. That's earned. And I know most adults will probably feel like they don't need to give the kids no respect. That's bullshit to me. And what makes it so interesting is that I am not the only one that feels this way. I have tons of conversations in this regard. And I think people will be amazed if they would allow their offspring to speak freely about some things. Where it's like, I don't have no problem with who you marry, but you married her. That don't automatically make her my parent. Or you marry him. That does not automatically make him or her my parent. Especially since we've been groomed to believe that friendships don't matter. That whole, I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I ain't your friend, that is the worst piece of controllable pompousness I've ever heard before in my life. Because if you look at the ratios of healing, it's more so the friend who stands in the gap of someone's healing. And the parent don't ever know that the kid then went through this horrendous ordeal. Why? Because you're too busy trying to be a parent, which is synonymous with authority. And that don't always have to be so. I've even gotten um, the opportunity to be inside of a sassiness that says, Judging by your parental report card, you probably would have been best just trying to be my friend. Because when you approach it from that point of view, it allows the offspring to mature in its own actualities with respect and tact. One of the things that I like about Michelle Obama, two things. For one, she's a sun sign Capricorn. That she part of the club regardless. But another thing that she said is that she's so grateful for the type of parents that she had that allowed her to be able to freely express herself, whether they agreed with it or not. And they didn't punish her for her saying something that they didn't like. They didn't punish her for being expressive. They didn't punish her for being curious. So when I think about these things, I began, or not even I began, I'm noticing that when I focus on these things, there are certain people and situations that come across my path that shows me the example of that thing that I'm pondering. So when I focus on the byproduct of who Michelle Obama is, or her levels of self, her succession of self. You know what? Let me write that down. Hold up. Let me write that down. So her succession of self, let me see. And not necessarily speaking about Michelle Obama per se. So, like I always say, we're getting in the mode where we're paying more attention to the message and not so much to the messenger, because everybody 40 going north has tried to critique Michelle's existence versus what it is that she came to say. Either way, they still want to channel it through this right or wrong thing, or they themselves is the judge or the critic of what it is that she has to say. Versus, you know what, Michelle, I bump with it, I resonate, I understand what you're saying, or that don't have nothing to do with me. Maybe I'll tap into it. Seems a little strange, might not, and then leave it be. Versus trying to tear her character down or assassinate her through the rumor mill or whatever. I don't even understand why we do. Yes, I do. Haha. The auction block mentality has its double edged sword like anything else that's been impressed upon the earthling psyche and emotionality. It's a double imprint. Experiences and encounters with people, places, and things, it's a double imprint. It's an imprint on the mind and an imprint on the heart. Now, because we live in a narrative that requires the imprint on the mind to supersede the imprint on the heart, we will continue to be looking through these lopsided ass lenses and always getting it wrong when it comes to chemistry and how we dealing with one another. How do we relate? Do you know what I came here for? Because, see, if you honestly knew what I came here for, you wouldn't feel so bad when I would show up to your cabaret. You won't take it personal. It's too much. It's too much. It's too much going. Yeah, it's too many cross section of energies for her to be in here. That's why she wacky now. She wacky now because she didn't take the authority to say that there are certain places I just cannot be in. Why you don't like to go to the movies? And it's always getting misjudged. Versus if we understood that there were certain planets that were more influential in some than others, is how you get the spectrum of human or earthling diversity. That's why I say I think we would be amazed if we were just able to see one another outside of embodiment. We are so fixated on the physical body. We leave no room to the vibratory frequencies that actually animate the body. And if we do, we're stuffing it through some religious lens that pretty much simmers down as God or the devil. Mainstream love to be provoking people to call something deemed demonic or toxic. And the more and more I hear it, is just the more and more you unfamiliar about the diverse energies that dwell this place. Because it is a smorgasbord. It's an energetic smorgasbord, and everything goes. And see, the powers that be that establish this motif know that anything goes. And they also know that your behaviors are determined upon what you believe. And so if you believed that there was an entire tapestry of gods and goddesses waiting to participate with you, all you have to do is acknowledge their presence. They cannot, if you do not acknowledge the presence. So if I was one of the prime social engineers, then I would make sure that that option was so fear based that you wouldn't even consider it because you would figure that anything outside of sweet baby Jesus is evil. And they would even construct an entire conglomerate, and they would call it after one of the most powerful species of wood ever. So they will call their little section of make believe Hollywood, and Hollywood will become this unstoppable conglomerate that pumped out make believe on an unreasonable level, and it would tap into every nook and cranny of the imaginal world, and it will label everything, and then it will present like here. So usually if you and here we are, I'm a fat girl, here we go, let's do it. A buffet dinner versus plated dinner. When you have a plated dinner outside of the bread and your drinks and a salad, that's pretty much what you get on that table, is what they bring to you on that plate. You have choices regarding menu, but you can't really alter the plate, that which comes on a plate. Can I substitute this macaroni and cheese for some cauliflower, or can I don't necessarily want this steak? Can I get salmon? Like there ain't too many places gonna know. You got to get, if you order the plate, you got to get what comes on plate. And that's what I believe religion is. Versus like if you do metaphysical, or you do the omni spiritual, or and I ain't, because see I'm now calling it omni spiritual. I'm starting to label shit. So I am now calling it omni spiritual because so many religious folk, now that they are finding out that they've been part of a hocus pocus, now they want to say they spiritual, but they are not doing the work to differentiate. So now they just thrusting themselves across the spiritual line and want to muddy up those waters. So the omni spiritual, those that take into consideration that they are a non physical entity having a physical experience, and that anything goes inside of this realm. It's the thing inside the sandwich. The third dimension is the thing inside the sandwich. The lower bread is the underworld. The top bread is the heavenly realms. And I know I'm probably simplifying it because pretty sure it's much more complex than that. But just need to give you some visuals. And the physical world is all of that stuff in the middle. It's your meat, your veggies, your condiments, whatever it is you like on your sandwich. That's what the third dimension is. And if you're a sandwich person, you know you can get real creative with a sandwich. It could be hot, it could be cold, it could be a mixture of both. Try a loaded steak and cheese with all the veggies. Honey, that's a beautiful experience. If you into meat. Some folk ain't even into to meat. Some folk ain't into veggies. Like, that's how diverse a sandwich can get. And if you think about sandwiches the way I think about sandwiches, sandwiches is a different version of a salad. Especially if you like salads with croutons, or you like salads with like French bread or toasted bread on the side or garlic bread on the side. That's what a sandwich is. But if you like meat in your salad, then you pretty much have a sandwich in a different kind of setting. So then you have another layer of diversity. or interchangeability. And all of the like sauces and vinaigrettes and all of the other enhancers of a particular salad. A particular sandwich. We ain't even talking about all the variety of breads that could possibly make up this salad. So your version of the way you see the underworld is not necessarily going to be mine. What you call demon and devil ain't necessarily going to be mine. But yet and still, yet and still, historical accounts after accounts show how if you do not like the bread that I have sanctioned is the bread, you die. Or I torture you. I have to eliminate you because you don't like this bread, or you not claiming this bread, you not worshiping this bread. How dare you try to replace bread? How did you even know there was another option for this bread? I ain't even taking it into the peanut butter and jelly. A whole totally different kind of dynamic of a sandwich. Still a sandwich. So I think inside of this hour's worth of rambling, that the takeaway is for those that are of not mainstream, sorry, those that are of a mm, diverse offspring, regardless of the co-creators that were part of the cultivation of your tribe, male or female, whether you are a mom with many children, or are you a dad with many children, and the differences in those that you found yourself co-creating with. If your uh, if your offspring tribe is not able to be together because of the jealousy and control of a co-creator, I'm really going to encourage you to go look at the TV series Sandman. Now, is it going to give you direct answers? No, but it is going to provoke you to expand your imagination. And anytime you expand your imagination, it gives uh, an increased potentiality to solutions. That's what creativity is all about. It's all about your imaginal landscaping and how you cultivate that. And so you might find different creative ways to either uh, mediate the conflict with these barriers when it comes to your offspring. Uh, but trust and believe, I think we need to pay a little bit more attention to the devastating effects when siblings are not allowed to blend properly, regardless of who their parents are. Yeah. And speaking as a now grown person with many siblings from my mom's side and my dad's side, I am truly grateful for all of my siblings. No matter how much we fuss or things may look a little weird, honey, there is a intrapersonal fortitude with understanding the manifestations of your blood, and that we really do need to stop letting the social structure dictate to us how we do family. And I've even seen several families defy odds with, and here's the thing, I was going to say the sister wives, but That's because I'm now knee deep in the investigations of poly relations. And I'm even challenging myself to find the wonder in these relations non sexual. That's what I'm really being challenged to do, because the greater is in the non sexual aspects of these relations. And I know for a fact that if the sexual energetic channel was removed from some of these scenarios, that there would be many more moms getting multi-generational dwellings so all the children could be raised together and not take on this whole ownership of the guy, which breeds jealousy and insecurity and all this other stuff, understanding that he too has been missioned to do as his heart desires. So I'll close with this. There is an aspect or an entire episode dedicated to a particular guy who um, didn't believe in death. He didn't believe in biological death. And so the elemental death heard him, and she decided that she was never going to come for him in death, in biological death. And so century after century after century after century, he would meet he would meet up with Dream every 100 years. He would meet up in this little tavern. It was interesting to see how the tavern would transform over every 100 years. Same location, same brick and mortar, different styles, different people, different times. And it got me to thinking, do we honestly know the people, or not even honestly, how about this? Do we have the means to truly know those that have transcended time and whose biological makeups actually maintain itself in this realm, like I say, regardless of time? Is that even a thing? What if it was a thing? Because our make believe components have been tampered with so much. And that's what the whole point was. It was to muddy up the waters of clarity. It was to fuck around with your emotionality so that you would want to turn that off. The source of your intuition, yeah, they want you to turn either dial it all the way down or shut it completely off. So that so much won't make sense to you. And then they'll give you the pompous arrogance to believe that you know everything about anything all the time. And then they'll sprinkle you with a little entitlement to say, you always got to be right. This whole righteous motif, you always got to be right. Even when you wrong and righteousness, you right. And that's why you have a whole bunch of walking disasters inside of the 21st century. Your make believe been tampered with on an epic scale. Your make believe has been tampered with. All these films and narratives and yeah, all the um, uh, music, motion pictures, and all of that stuff always hounding our psyche with ownership, ownership, ownership of other individuals, other human beings. I own you, I own you, I own you, I own you. Even if you don't outrightly say I own you, you got these expectations and entitlements that dictate that. That's where all these insecurities around romance come from. Now realizing romance is a component of the whole. And because I am romantically involved with you, or I have deemed you my romantic significant other does not mean you are now the warrant. What is it called? Uh, uh, the word is being replaced with governor, but that's not the one I wanted. What's the head of the prison? The I just keep thinking warrant. It's why is it not coming? The warden. Oh my goodness. Bear with me, please. But you becoming a significant other does not make you the warden, the warden of everything that they are now dealing with or cultivating or incubating or harvesting or yeah, that is not what that means. And when it's told to you that you're taking up vows to become one, what's mine is yours and yours is mine, that's of a vibratory nature. That's of a synergetic. It's a nature of synergy. Meaning I vow to uphold your frequency, blend with your frequency, harmonize with your frequency, be challenged with and by your frequency. It does not mean I now become your power of attorney and I am the guardian of your estate. Now, if something was to happen to you by default, maybe so. But that's another story for another time because I actually have, believe it or not, an opinion about that too. But right now, we're talking about the love of a sibling tribe. We're talking about the barriers that go up against the tapestries of siblings and how parental involvement can make or break that tapestry, can fuck around with that quest called tribe. And yes, slowly but surely, inside of my living example, I am seeing situations that are defying odds. I am seeing women come together for the sake of the raising of children. And I'm going to tell you the most remarkable, the most miraculous example I have yet to this date is two women deciding that they are not going to hate this guy because they share him in terms of baby daddiness. Like, it's not even, girl, we going to team up and woo woo woo. No, ain't none of that fuckery. It's the true, genuine, authentic. We share love for him, and that's what we have in common. And now we have offspring from him. And so now we are part of this legacy. So we either can build it up or tear it the fuck down. Because the nurturing still dwells inside of our bosom. Even if we are of warrior likeness, we have the fortification to say, I have no business fighting with you. You love him just like I do. I can't be mad at you for loving him because I know why you do. I can't deny my attraction no more than you can. That doesn't mean we need to be enemies. And now that we have the capacity to birth his nation, whether it's one, two, three, 17 kids, all the moms that are involved in that legacy, if they could only get the multi-generational motif going, if only they could heal themselves to dissolve the barriers of jealousy and inadequacy and insecurity. Can you imagine the combined credit of these moms and the combined resources and the combined economic influence, if they were to put their credit together, put their money together, resources together, get a big enough house where them and the children can dwell, and the dad can come in, or the dads, because we still got to remember that there are women with children by multiple guys. Why do we look down upon this when we ought to be in the vibratory frequency of a quest called tribe? Who told you to hate yourself? Who taught you to hate yourself? One of the greatest things that started happening for me when I began looking at certain women like you are me, I am you, and you are me. We are just different versions of the same thing. I can be just as hateful as you, but I'm not built that way, but I got it in me. If it's pulled out of me, if it's provoked, oh, it's coming. Yes, we are of two different people. I am rowdy, rowdy, and you are mild and meek. Somehow, some way, he was attracted to the both of us. Somehow, some way, we both carried his offspring. Why does that automatically translate into hatred and competition? Who taught you to hate yourself? So, I'm going to end it here. I might be posting the one that I spoke about earlier right after this one. Not sure yet. Like I said, I am at the beck and call of the energies of the day just because we are officially in bereavement. And in my opinion, as a shadow worker, I automatically make space for grief and its unpredictability. And so, usually during this time, when I, as a family member, am in active grief, an active bereavement. Um, so, yeah, that's it for this go round. And so thanks a bunch, like many, many thanks for hanging out with me. And I do wish you well.